On November 27, 2011, a comet was spotted traveling towards Earth. This comet's existence was confirmed by Mount John University Observatory on December 1st of that year, and the next day, the Minor Planet Center gave it a name, Comet C-2011-W3. Scientists continued to observe this comet's trajectory, which appeared to be nothing out of the ordinary. That is, until C-2011-W3 reached perihelion. C-2011-W3, like many objects entering the solar system, had been pulled into orbit around the Sun. And perihelion is a scientific term which refers to the point at which an object in orbit is the closest to the star it's orbiting. On December 13th, as C-2011-W3 approached perihelion, Solar Dynamics Observatory observed a fragment splitting off from the main body of the comet, a fragment that then began hurtling towards Earth. Despite the SCP Foundation's implementation of deterrence procedures, the comet stayed its course, and soon it became clear that areas near the predicted crash site would have to be evacuated. On December 21st, the comet reached the Earth, crashing into the Pacific Ocean 124 kilometers off the coast of the United States. This in itself wasn't unusual. On average, our planet is hit by 17 pieces of space debris a day, and much of it does land in the ocean. What was unusual, however, was that 3 days later, the creature that had been riding the piece of space debris reached land and revealed itself to the world. Starting on December 24, 2011, footage started cropping up all over the internet of an otherworldly creature. It appeared to be an enormous deer with mint green fur, a long neck, human face, and marbled black antlers ringed by floating ice crystals and metallic spheres. The SCP Foundation quickly mobilized in order to contain the beast, but it was immediately evident that it was impervious to attacks. What was worse, it had a devastating way of retaliating against aggressors. Fitting its cosmic origins, the deer possesses the godlike ability to instantly transmute matter through powerful energy beams. It can turn solids into liquids, gases into solids, and organic matter into metal instantaneously. The materials that result from these transmutations remain stable, despite outside factors that logically should destabilize them. For example, the deer can create shapes made of solid frozen hydrogen that remain solid even outside of the sub-zero temperatures that it normally requires to keep gases in their solid states. This transmutation ability is used consciously as a form of attack, and the beams occur in a variety of shapes around the creature. The most common are a vertical column measuring 5 to 7 meters in diameter and 60 to 80 meters in height, or a horizontal cone measuring between 100 and 150 meters in length and 10 to 30 meters in width at the furthest end. Although the deer rarely attacks without provocation, it will transmute matter indiscriminately, making no effort to exclude non-combatants from the range of the attack. Everything within the range of attack is transmuted. People hit with the beam will be transformed into hexagonal columns roughly 2.4 meters in height, known as SCP-2845-1. These columns have rubbery green skin and no organs outside of a brain, which makes up the entirety of the columns inside. Miraculously, they remain alive, as the brains of instances of SCP-2845-1 have been studied and are shown to be in a constant state of high activity. Analysis of brainwave patterns suggest a pattern of call and response, which implies a telepathic link between the different instances of SCP-2845-1. Given the devastating effects of SCP-2845's attacks, the SCP Foundation naturally had an extremely difficult time containing it, and they had to take drastic measures to do so. The Foundation enlisted the help of the Global Occult Coalition, as well as outside consultants who were brought in to try and draft a plan for containment of the beast. The ideal place for its containment was determined to be somewhere on the other side of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and through a campaign of artillery bombardment that lasted from December 26, 2011 to January 15, 2012, the SCP and GOC were able to drive SCP-2845 across the mountains to the location that would become known as Site 100. What sets Site 100 apart from other SCP containment sites is the complex system put in place in order to properly keep SCP-2845 in containment. The site consists of 9 concentric circular bands, designated Ring A through Ring I, with a gap located between Ring C and Ring D. 6 circular chambers are located at 0, 60, 120, 180, 240, and 300 degrees within each ring and gap. The chambers located at 0 degrees are aligned with geographic north. 2 additional circular chambers are located outside of Ring I, located at 120 and 240 degrees. The floor of each circular chamber is decorated with a hexagram, or 6-pointed star made of lead. The central chamber, containing SCP-2845 and 216 instances of SCP-2845-1, is to contain an atmosphere of 96.3% hydrogen, 3.25% helium, and 0.45% ammonia maintained at -110 degrees centigrade. Site-100 must be staffed at all times by a minimum of 30 trained individuals, or to be given unlimited access to untrained human subjects. The staff and subjects must perform a complex series of rituals at different points of the circle, acting on a cycle of 63 hours and 54 minutes. Each ritual lasts 39 minutes, and they must be performed every 10 hours. At the beginning of each new cycle, the schedule of rituals will be carried out in the next ring closest to the containment chamber, going from Ring I inwards until they reach Ring A. Each ritual requires 6 participants. Procedure 410 Constantine is performed at the 60-degree point on the circle. Containment specialists are presented with masks: joy, sadness, anger, apathy, fear, and foolishness, and must act out a farcical comedic play before playing a dice game with one another. Procedure 420 per Arnaldo is performed at the circle's 120-degree point. This ritual involves a performance by a band consisting of a flute, oboe, clarinet, French horn, timpani, and bass drum. It must be a live performance. Recordings have no effect. Procedure 430 Epimetheus, performed at the 180-degree point, involves exchanging small gifts with values not exceeding $4.28 USD. Each gift exchange is followed by the recitation of Ceremony Epimetheus A, and followed by scattering grain over the chamber floor. Procedure 440 Cassiel, performed at 240 degrees, involves the recitation of Ceremony Cassiel A, while participants bind their feet with wool and drink 500 milliliters of olive oil. They will then break apart a rock weighing at least 200 kilograms with hammers. Ceremony Cassiel B is recited throughout. While the previous procedures might sound weird, it's after that point that the containment rituals start to take a turn for the gruesome. Procedure 450 Cairo is performed at the 300-degree point. In this ritual, a D-Class personnel has a symbol drawn on their stomach with a platinum-based paint, a ring surrounding a dot, with an arrow pointed upwards at the 90-degree point. The D-Class is then presented with a blue cloak, crown, and scepter, before being restrained in a chair and castrated with a hand sickle as Ceremony Cairo A is recited. Finally, 460 Omphalos is performed at the 0-degree point, the very top of the circle. This ritual, the most gruesome of all, involves cooking and eating a 3-month-old infant. In case of containment breach, Site-100 is equipped with a nuclear warhead, just like all SCP containment sites, which will be detonated if containment ever fails. Because of the complexity of the procedures required to contain SCP-2845, some animosity started to develop between the Foundation personnel stationed at Site-100 and the outside contractors who had conceived the containment rituals. They had to go through these time-consuming, elaborate, sometimes horrific procedures over and over again, going around and around the circular maze that made up the site every 10 hours. And there was no way of being able to tell if the things they were doing had any effect on the creature in containment at all. On the 31st of January 2012, Site Director Dell finally approached one of the containment consultants and asked him why, exactly, they had to uphold all this pageantry. Surely there had to be some other, more streamlined way of keeping the creature in containment. The consultant denied this and explained their reasoning. "I find it sickening that after all the struggle to contain this creature, pencil-pushing bureaucrats are still seeking to cut corners where they cannot be afforded to be cut. The ritual will remain as it is and will not be changed in any way. Rituals do not work because of some underlying laws such as those that science operates on. Rituals work because they are rituals. They work because an arbitrary set of criteria has been met with exacting care. Belief that meeting these arbitrary criteria achieves a certain end assigns power to the ritual. The actions that were once meaningless now have been assigned meaning through their repetition and application. This is how one seals away a god. And this is a god. I know that the Foundation does not approve of using the term, but it is still the case. The stag is a god. and it is not a petty local god. It is not one of the mild gods of Earth or some weaker spirit that is bound by the strength of man's belief. We have, for the time being, fooled it into thinking that we have overpowered it. It does not understand that we do so falsely. It is a god. For God's words have power. Ritual and belief hold greater power over a god than all the laws of science. So why are the containment procedures for SCP-2845 so dramatic and complex? The answer is simple, because the team believes the rituals work. As a cosmic deity, SCP-2845 doesn't follow any scientific laws as we understand them on Earth. But what it does understand is the power of rituals and belief. The only reason it hasn't escaped is that it responds to the beliefs of the Foundation personnel, and in turn it believes that it's being held in containment. The consultant goes on. It will not think to escape or even to change its strategy. The idea will not even pass through its mind. It cannot comprehend the concept. It does not think in the way we think. Truth be told, I would not say it thinks at all. This is an old god. It does not dabble in decisions. Decisions are for creatures who may act erratically, variably, or out of line. A god of this strength simply is. It is an absolute. It acts as a force. In building this ritual, we have shifted its being the slightest bit, and now it is locked into a pattern of behavior. It struggles against us, and we struggle against it. And we are locked together in eternal dance so long as the ritual remains intact. One last question remains, though, when it comes to SCP-2845. The rituals that are performed to keep it in place are far from random. They seem so specific that it feels impossible that the outside consultants could have come up with them out of the blue. What was their inspiration? Well, in his statement to Site Director Dell, he mentions listening to the songs of the converted. Remember how the instances of SCP-2845-1 were shown to not only be alive, but communicating with each other telepathically? They were able to communicate with the contractors as well, giving them the tools they needed to create the prison that would hold their god. If you were wondering how the converted feel about having been transformed into immobile green monoliths, the consultant had an answer for that question too. They are not suffering, but they are no longer human. They are changed utterly. And so the rituals continue in order to keep SCP-2845 contained. Perhaps one day a new technology will be found, or simpler procedures will be given. But until that day, we're all lucky that there are others who will subject themselves to horror day after day, hour after hour, for our behalf. Now go check out SCP-4205, In the Eyes of the Beholder, and SCP-2317, The Devourer of Worlds, A Door to Another World, for more from the Foundation's files.